everyone, welcome back. It's Melanie, your She Shed Scrapper. So today's video is a little different. It is not a process video. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you different ways to use a stencil using several mixed media options. So this is number one, is just using some Distress Oxides. For the background paper for all of the options, I think there's 6 total. I use the white foundations paper that you can see there by Vicki Boutin. So all I did for this one was use my picket fence blending brush and the Distress Oxides. You can see the colors I have there. That one there is the Fired Brick. And then I go to Carved Pumpkin and then the Fossilized Amber. One thing that I learned very quickly on this first one was that I needed to tape the stencil down. It just moved a little bit on me, so I just used some washi tape on the bottom so it wouldn't rip up the paper in case I want to use these in the future for kind of backgrounds. And so I just lined up those and just made sure I taped them down. So I don't think you see me tape them on the next several options, but I did find that out very quickly. So again, all I did was kind of blend these colors in together, kind of made like an ombre look, red to yellow. And I don't know, this one was really fun. I really like the outcome of this one. So what you'll see me do is for each of them, you can see me kind of show you the process of them, and then I show you like the finished product of them as well. So to clean off that blending brush, all I do is use a baby wipe and kind of blend it into the baby wipe to clean off the blending brush. So there is the finished product of the first one. This next one is using Vicki Boutin's CreativeFX Iridescent Glaze and her crayons as well. So as you can see, I have that piece of plastic there and I just kind of colored with the crayons on the plastic. And then I used a palette knife to scoop out some of the CreativeFX glaze and put some on top of the, crayons, and then mix it up. So that one there, one thing I did learn with this too, is that you kind of see that chunk there, that I couldn't get that to break down. And so that was kind of frustrating. I like the color of it, but again, I don't recommend kind of the chunks, I guess. So the yellow ended up working a lot better. Because as you can see there, when I flipped over the palette knife, there was a big chunk of the crayon on the palette knife. So that wasn't really blending in. See, there you can see that it just didn't blend in very well. So I just wanted to be upfront with you, kind of show you kind of what I found worked, what didn't work, and whatnot. So I did want to show you kind of everything. So then I just kind of cleaned off the palette knife with the baby wipe as well. And here the yellow worked a lot better. So you can see that, you know, I blended in, and honestly I probably could have used some more of the crayon. It gives it kind of a muted yellow color. But this here did blend a lot better than the brown that you can see at the top. So I just kind of, again, partly just did this to show you guys the options. Maybe in the future I'll use them in a layout. So this one here probably won't be used for a layout in the future just because of that, how that brown didn't really blend in very well. And so this one here also, I wanted to show you kind of another trick that I have learned with cleaning off the stencil. So once I clean off the plastic, get that all cleaned off really well, I grabbed some paper towel, and so there you can see the finished product. So it's not awful, but you can definitely tell where the crayon didn't blend in very well. So here, you grab a paper towel, and then I just use my baby wipe and kind of clean it off with the baby wipe. I used the paper towel because I wasn't really gonna use this in the future. But if you were to do this on a piece of paper, probably one that has gesso on it, the design will actually show up on the paper, kind of like a mirrored image. So just a kind of a tip that I found So another way to kind of utilize as much of the mixed media medium as possible. So this one here is the CreativeFX Iridescent Glaze again, and then the Vicki Boutin Powdered Pigments. When I first started this one, you can tell that this orange is so bright. I was kind of worried, so I just used a little bit, but this one here, I really like this outcome as well. The Iridescent Glaze actually mutes it down quite a bit. So you can see I added even more glaze to give it more color, or not glaze, sorry. Added more powder to give it color. So this is actually a really pretty color with that mixed in. And so I just, use the palette knife and just blend it over like you would regularly with the CreativeFX glaze. And then what you'll see too, I wanted to just utilize as much of it as I could. So just keep, blending it over the stencil. And what you'll see with the yellow as well, once I clean that up, is that the yellow actually gets pretty muted as well. So I really am glad that I tried this and wasn't kind of too scared with the brightness of the powders, because as you can tell, even looking at the glaze just sitting on the plastic, it was muted quite a bit. So all I did was kind of blend it over the stencil with this one. What I like about this is when the glaze dries, it does give it some dimension. And so it does raise it up off the paper a little bit. So I did kind of try to blend them in together as well. So it wasn't just such a stark straight line of a contrast between the two colors. And like I said, I don't know if I will use these in the future in layouts or not. But it was fun to play with all the new mixed media mediums that I have gotten recently. I honestly my stash has grown tremendously over the last couple months with all the Tuesday morning hauls I've had. And then this one here is just a simple one. I just used some of my Lindy's Starburst sprays and sprayed over top of the stencil. One thing I did learn, and you'll see once I raise this off the page, because it is so liquidy, it did kind of run under the stencil, but I do like that option. And then this one here, I have some of the Vicki Boutin molding paste, and it's just white. So what I did is I just put a layer of the molding paste over top of the stencil, just again to give it some dimension. You could honestly just do this behind the background by itself. That would be an option. What I end up doing is after I set it aside and it dried, I use some of the, let's see, I think they're Jane Davenport. I think they're just kind of like crayons as well. So once it dries, sorry, you're going to hear clicking, opening up the crayons to see what they're called. I think they're just the Jane Davenport crayons. So what I do is I use them, put some on the plastic there, add some water to water it down, kind of make a watercolor. This is one process that I need to get better at. I probably needed some more water than what I have, or put the crayon right on top of the molding paste and then add water. So still need some practice on this one. The Distress Oxides probably would have worked too. Water those down and use those as a watercolor. So definitely different options, and obviously I would have to play with this one a little bit. And I don't think the molding paste was completely dry. For the most part it was, but not completely. So what I did is I just tried to use the colors, of fall, because the stencil is of leaves. So I just did the red, orange, and yellow again and just kind of blended those together. And like I said, not one of my favorite options. I think if I were better at kind of the watercolor ordeal, I know Vicki Boutin has watercolor markers. I think that's what they're called. I think those would probably work really well on top of this, or even just more water on top of the crayons, because as you can see, I was having a hard time picking it up off the plastic, so I kind of just dumped it on top. So it dripped down onto the molding paste, and then I kind of blended it in. I think when I'm all said and done with this one, I think I even try to add some water right to it, to kind of mix the colors a little bit more. So I mean, this is an option. This did give me an idea though, and I think this is number 5. So I think number 6, the idea for number 6 came off of this one, just because I didn't like how this looked over top of the molding paste. So there you can see me adding water, trying to kind of move the colors around a little bit to make it more of a watercolor feel. But that is the final product there. Again, I'm probably not using them, so I didn't spend too much time on that, but this is what I got the idea. So what I did is I just grabbed my picket fence brush again and my Distress Oxides, same color as the first option, and just blended in the background before I did anything else. So like I said, it pretty much looks identical blending wise as the first option. So I just used the red, the orange, and then the yellow. But what I did instead for this one is, once I have the background done, then I decided to use some of the mixed mediums on top of it. And so I placed the stencil on top of the blended background there, and I don't think I blended down enough. I don't think it was the whole size of the stencil, but I do use 2 different mixed media options for this one. I think the first one I use is just the Iridescent Glaze by itself, the CreativeFX Glaze by itself, just to see how it looks on top of it. Like I said, it does give it some dimension, and I apologize. I am having some issues with my tripod holding my phone. So you can kind of see the angle of the camera changes, so I apologize for that. But I just blended over top of the background with this Iridescent Glaze, just to give it some dimension, and I do really like this option. So once I'm done with that, I clean the palette knife off, and then I wanted to see, I'm new with the whole molding paste or the texture paste, so I wanted to see how that would look on top of it as well, just by itself. So that is what this one is here, and this gives it dimension as well. Pops it up off the page, which is really nice. And I don't think it took up any of the color. I think it stayed pretty white, maybe a little bit. Maybe I didn't let the background dry, all the way. But that was the last option, I believe. So there you can kind of see the different, I think I raised it up so you can see. So the Iridescent Glaze is shiny, and then the molding paste just is raised off the page a little bit. I will show you some close-ups here of all of the finished products, and I appreciate you guys watching and subscribing to my channel, and we will see you next time. Thanks, guys.